Do I believe the time is short for people on the earth before Jesus returns? That's a question I've got from people. I do. Do I know? No, I do not know. But I study the Bible, and if you study the Bible enough, you'll see there is a clear delineation between time frames. There was the antediluvian times, which is the time before the flood. And then there was that time after the flood, before the Messiah came. There's prophecy talking about all of the things about the coming Messiah, who was Jesus Christ. He fulfilled all the messianic prophecies. And if you're a skeptic like me, you might be like, okay, well, why do you believe Jesus was even, real? Did he even really exist? Well, that's kind of like a joke, even in secular historical commentary. Everyone knows Jesus existed. Everyone knows Pontius Pilate was real. There's secular accounts of both Pontius Pilate and Jesus. And there's tons of other, reasons to believe that. But did Jesus really raise from the dead? Well, apparently there were 500 people or more that saw him after his resurrection. So that's an account in secular historical Irenaeus. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but he was a secular historian. And then, so why do I believe time is short? Well, if you study the Bible, and it's frustrating to talk to people who haven't because they don't understand. And if you haven't looked into this, you might want to, but God describes in the beginning how it will be in the end. And a day is as 1,000 years, as a year is a day. And there are 7 days. And one of those days is the day of rest. That's the 7th day. And the days before that, basically 6,000 years, 7,000 years total will be at the end of 7,000 years. That'll be at the end of Jesus's millennial reign on the earth. And so there's people that don't understand what the rapture is. It's basically the resurrection. The gathering of the saints includes those that are alive and remain, which is in Thessalonians. It's either in 1st or 2nd. I can't remember where it is exactly, but it's in there. It talks about those that are alive and remain at the end when the resurrection happens, and then those of us that are born again, believers in Jesus Christ, will be caught up in the air. That's going to be fantastic if you're alive during that time. It's going to be a real unique time. It is a time of judgment, because that is a time when God separates the members of the body of Christ, both dead and alive, into his presence with Jesus Christ. And then 7 years will pass, and those are going to be, according to Jesus in Matthew 24, the worst time the earth has ever seen and ever will see. And it is not something you want to go through. I think there's going to also be a large amount of people during that time that come to faith. In darkness, light shines bright. And we are, what I think is the birth pains, Jesus describes also in Matthew 24. We are in the birth pains now. Things are getting worse. Everybody's becoming like the frog in the boiling water, just not noticing it, forgetting how times seemed so good back in 2014, or 1989 or whatever. Of course, in the world, there were recessions and things like that. So I'm talking about, darkness coming over this world. It's increased exponentially since I've been alive, since I was a kid in the 80s. And, I just see Jesus coming back very soon. Why? Because, well, it's almost been 2,000 years. 2,000 years since Jesus died on the cross. That leaves 1,000 years left. If you look at a day as a year, and a year as a thousand, a day is as 1,000 years as a day is a year. I don't know if I said that right, but you get my point. So if you study out this whole timeline thing, you can see that we're probably pretty close. Now, there's some discrepancies with how many years have passed because of multiple reasons. But if it really has been almost 2,000 years, whenever 2,000 years hits, Jesus is going to remove the church. I believe that. I just don't know when that 2,000 years is, although I think it's very close. I thought in 2021 it was the time. Of course, you have to subtract 7 years from that number because there is the time of Jacob's trouble spoken of in Daniel and reiterated in the book of Revelation, that there will be a time when God has to fulfill his promises to Israel. And so we're getting close. Israel's been back in their homeland since 1948, May 14th, which is just passed. So I don't know what that is years-wise. I'd have to do the math on it, but it's many years. And but I'm basically solely going on the fact that I believe that Jesus will return. The rapture is going to happen. The resurrection is going to happen first. And immediately after that, we're all going to be caught up in the air. And so what's going to happen after that? There'll be a lot of people who were not born again that even go to church. They're like, what happened? Churches do not teach anything. Most of them do not teach anything about the book of Revelation and what is to come. Not even to think out loud about it or pontificate or meditate on it. Just totally ignore it. Life is great. We're going on. Things are going to get better. Things are not going to get better. Things are going to get worse. I wouldn't mind if I was wrong about this, but because I want to see my child live a full life. But the fact is I don't really believe that's there's a lot of time left. So anyway, yeah. So these are my thoughts, and I just want to put them out there.